Okay, so I'm back with another Winhance Devlog, and this is Winhance Devlog number 6. And in this video, there's about 4 things that I want to get done, and then I want to publish another release to Winhance so that there's a new update this week. So we'll see how far we get today, but that's my goal. If I can't accomplish it in this recording, then it will have to wait until tomorrow, but we're going to see how far we can get today. Now, since the last Winhance Devlog video that I posted, I have made some more changes, but I didn't record those, so they won't be in a video. But I will mention them to you quickly here, as you can see from the commit history that I have here on the dev branch. So the last thing we were working on was the Windows Update DLL collision. And since then, I have made some more commits, as you can see on the screen now. I'm not going to mention every single one of these in the video now. You can see them on screen here. You can pause if you really want to see the commit messages, or you can even go to the GitHub page and look at the commits yourself. But most of these were related to translations or missing translation keys that I had to add, and then some other small stuff like adding software and adding a Copilot preview taskbar button toggle for 23H2, because in Windows 11 23H2, the Copilot preview button on the taskbar was part of the ISO image. So on Windows 11 23H2, users will now see this Copilot preview button, or if you change the Windows version filter. But basically, what this allows users to do is, if they create an auto unattend file with Winhance and they want to use it on a Windows 11 23H2 image, they can now toggle off the setting so that the Copilot preview button will be disabled as soon as they load into the desktop. So those are a few small things that I've done up until this point, but now we need to get into what this video is going to be about. Now, unlike previous videos, I'm not going to go through every single tab that I have open at the moment and explain what we're going to be working on in this video. Once again, I'm going to put the tasks that I'm working on up above on the screen, so you can keep track of what I'm working on at what point in the video. But I'm going to go through the issue, and then I'm immediately going to start an implementation of it or hand it over to the AI agent so that we can discuss it. And then I can decide which of the approaches that the AI has come back with that I actually want to implement. So let's get started with the first one here, which is a suggestion to have the Winhance window size retained when the application is closed and reopened. So as you can see here, currently, if you resize the Winhance application window and then close the application, then reopen it, the default size is retained. So it just opens to a default size, but this user would like to see the application window size retained when you close and reopen the application. So I agree with that. I think that's a nice improvement that we can make to Winhance. So I'm going to start by copying the issue URL, and then we can go over to VS Code, where I've got PowerShell terminal open already. And for these tasks, I'm actually going to use Claude Code. In the previous recording, I used the Gemini CLI, and I still use that for the translations. It just works better compared to Claude Code in terms of how it can handle the translations and the JSON files. But overall, at this time of the recording, Claude Code is still better than Gemini for these everyday tasks, but you'll still see me using both. For these tasks, I'm going to be using Claude Code. So I'm going to give it the following prompt: access the content on this page, and I'm just going to paste the issues page. I think we can implement that using and then I'll just link the user preferences service, because we already have a service that saves user preferences to the local app data of that specific user profile in Windows. And then I'm just going to paste my prompt here so it can do an analysis of it and then provide me with recommendations based on a pragmatic approach, a clean architecture approach. Basically, it's just going to come back to me with a few options before it starts implementing anything so that I can review it, and then we'll implement it based on what I actually want to have changed. And Claude Code has been updated, so I see that the ultrathink keyword actually doesn't do anything anymore. So I'm just going to remove that from the prompt and just tell it to think it through. But I'm going to send off this message to Claude Code, and then we'll come back to it once we've worked through all the issues. So I'm just going to drag this to the top there, because what I want to do is rename this to the issue, which is 312. So I'm going to rename it to 312, and this is called window size. Now, the next issue that I still need to have a deeper look at is the issue where Winhance is still falsely reporting some apps as installed after it was removed already. So on issue 311 here, we have a report that says that Edge is still showing as installed even after it was removed on initial install of Winhance. So this person also provided the log file, and I can see from the log file that Edge is removed, but in Winhance, it still shows as installed. So the app status discovery service that I have in Winhance still has to be tweaked and improved. But what I want to do with regards to this issue is improve the logging of the app status discovery service in Winhance. So let me just show you what Winhance currently reports in the log file. So currently where it checks the installation status of items, it uses Winget first. We did all of that in one of the previous Winhance devlogs. So we can see that first it parses the Winget table output. So on this computer, you can see it says it found 31 by package ID and 4 by name. Then we also have fallback detection, where it checks apps installed via a WMI query, and then also in the registry uninstall strings. Now you can see with both of the fallback detection on this launch of Winhance, it didn't detect any. And then in total, it got 35 apps installed, and the display name detection found 1 out of 2 apps installed. So I want to change this logging so that it shows me every single app that it detects as installed and how it found it, whether it was via Winget or via one of the fallback methods. Because you can see it's detected 35 installed apps, but it only shows me the Winget name matches that it used here. So I'm going to copy these logs, and I'm going to go back to VS Code, and we've got another PowerShell window open here. So I'm just going to launch Claude and rename this. So I'm just going to rename it to installation checks. And this is just to keep things organized so I know what I'm working on in which terminal. So I'm just going to paste that, and then I'll give it this prompt. Here are the logs for when Winhance checks the installation of items. Can you enhance the logging so that it shows me every single item it marks as installed and how it detected it? And then once again, I'll just paste my prompt so it can give me a thorough analysis of that specific request that I made. So I'll send that off. And by the way, on the issue page here, I also asked the creator of this issue to run these commands individually, which will also show me the output on his or her computer for where exactly these queries that we're doing is finding edge. But I'm still going to change the logging as well, so that if there are more reports of these issues, maybe with other applications which are not edge, I can figure out exactly where Winhance is marking that specific item as installed, although it's not installed. Okay, so before I move on to these other issues that I have open here, let me just see what Claude has come back with the first 2 issues that I've given it, because these other issues are going to require a little bit more time and testing inside a virtual machine before we can actually hand them over to Claude or do something ourselves about it. So first, let's look at the window size issue that we had, where Winhance isn't remembering the previous size or position that the user selected. So we already have user preference service, yes, and we already have a window size manager, but we don't save the window position. I had something like this in the development build of the application, but I might have removed it or didn't go through with it. So the infrastructure is already 90% in place. We just need to wire up the save and restore logic. So we've got 2 options. The pragmatic option is to just enhance the window size manager, and this is also the recommended option. And then it's got some pros and cons there. Or we can do pure clean architecture and create a new Windows state persistence service, which I don't think I want to do because this is another interface and another service to maintain. Or we can do option C, code behind in the main window, and I don't think I want to do that. I also agree with option A, to enhance the window size manager that I already have, and it's not over engineering. It's just completing an existing design. So then it's got some suggested code changes that it'll do to Windows Size Manager, and it'll basically just save the state of where it is. So if we look at the bottom here, we've got an async consideration. The user preferences service methods are async, but WPF event handlers like closing and loaded don't naturally await. So its recommendation is to do approach 1, which is fire and forget, but I don't actually agree with that. I think we should do approach 2, which is safer, even although it might block the UI thread briefly. It should not even be noticeable, to be honest, because it should be instantly saving to that file. We could also create a model class, which has type safety and single read and write operation, but this would interfere with our current user preferences service, so it's not worth it, and the flat keys work fine with the existing Windows Size Manager service that I already have. So it's got some questions for me. The first question is, should we also persist Windows state if it's maximized? I've included it in the proposal, but let me know if you want normal only. No, I think we should save the maximized state to. Then question 2, should the position be saved? Yes, it should be. And then 3, any concern about the system Windows Forms screen dependency for multi-monitor detection? It's commonly used in WPF for this purpose, but let me know if you want a pure WPF solution. Okay, so for question 3 here, I actually need to ask it a question because I'm going to be refactoring Winhance from WPF to Avalonia UI, and that's going to be a major refactor. Before I'm going to do that, I'm first going to make sure that all of the bugs in the current version and the features that are there work, because I think it might take a while to get it refactored to Avalonia. I'm going to tell it that we're gonna refactor to Avalonia UI pretty soon. So how does that influence this decision? Can you just use what will work for Avalonia 2, or must we temporarily use the WPF solution? You implement what's best and just tell me in your end response what you decided on. Then I'm just going to pass my prompt. So it writes simple yet effective code, removes any summaries and excessive comments, and make sure there's no dry or YAGNI code left over as it relates to this task. And then I'll build and test the project myself. So I'm going to send off that message. Let's go over to the installation checks chat that we started. So it first shows us what the logs show. We already know what the logs show. The core issue is simple. You're only logging name matches, not ID matches or fallback matches. It has a pragmatic approach. Just add logging directly to where the detection happens. Simple, minimal changes to understand. And it's got the code examples here. Option 2, cleaner architecture, which is enum-based detection method. Create an enum to track detection methods, then log consistently at the end. So we've got a new enum. I think that's a little bit too over-engineered for what I want. I just wanted to change the logging that's already in place. And it says here that the clean architecture approach option 2 is only needed if I wanted to show the detection method in the UI too. And I just want to see it in the log file. And then it has a quick note on the log levels. It wants to use log level debug for this, but I actually want everything at log level info for now. Later in the development of Winhance, I'll have a proper logging manager where we can switch between the different log levels. For now, I just want everything at info so that I can see it in one file. So for this, I'm just going to tell it to implement option 1 as you described, but add it all to log level info. And then once again, I'm just going to give it the prompt so it writes the code the way that I want it and that I'll build and test the project myself. So I'm going to send off that message. Let's go back to the window size issue that we had. So it's already implemented these changes. With regards to the Avalonia migration note, it used a Win32p invoke instead of system Windows Forms screen. So these Win32 APIs work identically in Avalonia since p-invoke is platform level, not framework level. So when we migrate, you'll need to replace WF specific types, but the monitor detection logic can stay as is. So let's do a build and test of the application and resize the window to see if it actually works. Okay, so I'm going to maximize it and relaunch it and see if it is actually maximized. I'll have a look at the user preferences file too after this to see if it actually saves it properly. But let's just test this to see if it works. So it does not remember the fact that I had it maximized. Let's see what happens if I drag it a little bit smaller and move it to the edge of the screen there. If I close that and build again, we'll see if it actually saves the preferences, and it did not save the preferences. So I'm going to open the log file and then the user preferences file that I have. So we can see in the user preferences file, it did not even save the Windows State Managers. I don't even see it saving those preferences when I closed the application. So I'm going to copy these logs, go back to Claude and going to paste those, tell it it's not working. You can see that it isn't even saving the window preferences to the file. And then I'm also going to tell it here is the content of the user preferences file. Let me just copy that, paste that too, and send that off. So now it's automatically going to fix that. If you have a look at the installation checks, it's made the changes to the app status discovery service. So if I do a build and test of the application and we have a look at the latest log file, we should be seeing much more specific entries as to what exactly it marks as installed. So let's test that quickly. So if I open the latest log file here and we go through it, now we can see where the check installation status is starting. Now we can see exactly what it detects as installed and with which method. So it'll tell me if it uses the Wingate name or the Wingate ID. And I can see it marked both of the Thoriums installed there. And then at the bottom here, it says how many was found by Wingate, 31 by package ID, 4 by name. And then the fallback detection on my computer didn't find any. And then it has additional that's installed by just the display name, which is SniffNet. And the display name detection found 1 out of 2 apps. So these apps are 2 specific apps, which can only be downloaded via a URL. And the only way to verify them is via the display names. So they won't even show up in the Wingate output or these other detection methods. So we have special logic to check just those 2 apps. But this is what I wanted with regards to the logging, because now I can see exactly where it will mark an item as installed, which is not installed. So I'm going to go back to VS Code, and then in PowerShell down here, I'm going to commit these changes. So git status tells me there are 2 files we modified, and that's correct. So I'm just going to add the file related to the app status discovery, because the other file is related to another issue we're working on. And then we'll do git commit, and this commit message I'm just going to call improve logging for app installation checks. So I'll commit that and then push that up to the dev branch. So when the new version of Winhance is released and people report the same issue, I can get more information as to what exactly is marking that item as installed. So I'm going to close the installation checks terminal that I had open here. Let's look at the window size issue that we had. So the problem is clear. When we closed the main window, the command terminated the app before the async save completes. So we just made it synchronous, so it completes before shutdown. So let's test that. I'm going to build the application. Once again, I'm going to maximize it first, close it. So now when closing the application, it just stalls completely, and I have to forcefully end the task before it does anything. And on top of that, it doesn't even seem to be saving the preferences to the user preferences file. So these changes that Claude made was not ideal because it's not working. So I'm going to give it another chance to fix it itself. I'm going to tell it that the application completely stalls on exit now, and I have to force close it. Also, the preferences aren't even saved. Can you reanalyze this issue, your approach to it, and think it through properly and get it fixed and working? I'm going to send it this message and I'm going to see if it can fix it. If it doesn't work, I'm really tempted to just reset the state of this file back to the original state, the one that's on GitHub. And I'm going to start over this conversation with Gemini and see if it does a better job. So I'm actually going to do what I just said, because you can see that I've just hit a limit on Claude and it only resets in about an hour or so. So I'm going to open a new terminal here, open up Gemini. So I'm just going to restore this file. And you can see I can use git restore and then give it this file. So now if I do git status, everything should be up to date with the dev branch that I have. But remember, I already committed the logging changes up to the dev branch. So the logging changes that I did before will still be there. The only thing that's changed now is any changes that Claude Code made to that specific file, the Windows Size Manager file, that is now reset back to what I had before. So it's basically reset it completely. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this exact same prompt that I gave to Claude Code, and I'm going to give it to Gemini here. So I'm going to paste it, save it, give that over to Gemini, and we'll see what it does with regards to this issue. So I'm going to close the Claude Code window, drag over the terminal up here, rename this to 312 Windows Size Issue, and then yes, we'll allow it for the session so Gemini can have the access that it needs. So Gemini has come back with its response. Let me just scroll to the top here. So based on the analysis of the issue, here's its recommended plan. So it's got a pragmatic approach, which is recommended. Handling window geometry is inherently a UI concern. placing it directly in the views code behind file is the most straightforward, effective, and simple approach. It avoids polluting the view model with UI-specific types or creating complex Windows services for a single feature. But the thing is, we already have it. We already have the Windows Size Manager. So Gemini didn't pick that up. So it's got proposed changes here, and it might be correct that this is genuinely a UI concern and that it couldn't be put in the code behind file, but that's not what I want. I don't think that is the best way forward. I do think Claude identified the Windows Size Manager correctly, but its implementation, something went wrong there. So I'm going to respond with, what about the @window size manager? Can't that be used? I don't like this being in the code behind file. Analyze again and then present me with your findings and recommendations. Okay, let's see what it comes back with. Now, while Gemini is doing its thing on the Winhance window size issue, let's look at the next bug or the next issue, which is 310. And this is another installation status indicator that's wrong. And this is with regards to Adobe Acrobat DC that's not detected in the list of external software. So it is installed, but it's showing as not installed. So it's basically the inverse of what we had before with the Edge and OneDrive installation status indicators. Now, I've already opened this in a virtual machine and I've installed Adobe Acrobat, and I've confirmed that indeed it does not show Adobe Acrobat Reader as installed. So I was able to recreate this issue, but I've just copied the latest build that I was working on in this video, where we have the log file that shows us what's being detected as installed and what's not being detected as installed. So I just want to run that here and then go to the external software section and show you in the document viewers here that Adobe Acrobat Reader is not shown as installed, although we do have it installed on the computer here. And I actually installed it with Winhance, so it should be showing as installed. But nonetheless, let's open the logs, because I want to give these logs to Gemini and show it the logs, and then as well as the output of what I get from Winget and the WMI queries. So we can see the installation check started here, checking the Winget availability. So then via the Winget ID, it only found the VC redistributables and it didn't find any other apps. That's because none of the other apps are installed on here. Now, these are different than the Windows pre-installed apps like Calculator and Snipping Tool and all that type of stuff. These are related to the external apps and apps that are actually installed via Winget, not the pre-installed AppX packages that come with Windows. And Microsoft Edge and Microsoft OneDrive, those aren't AppX packages. So that's why they also show up in this output here. But I want to start working on this issue. So I'm going to copy these logs and I'm going to go back to VS Code. I see Gemini did some stuff on the Windows size issue, which I didn't want it to do yet because I wanted to have a look at what it actually wants to do before it implements it. So I don't like that. But I'm going to open another Gemini instance here. Just going to drag that to the top here. Just going to open the Notepad buffer where I can start chatting to it and paste the logs there. Then at the top, just going to tell it to get the content of this page. And then I want to copy the issue, which is 310. So I'll give it the URL. Here are the logs. Adobe Acrobat is installed, but it's not found as installed by Winhance. Then on the virtual machine here, I want to do some of my own checks. If we open up the terminal or PowerShell and we go to the other issue here where Edge was still showing as installed, I want to copy these commands that I gave on this issue, but instead of checking for Edge, I want to maybe check for Adobe. So we can see we've got 2 results. So I want to copy these and I want to give that to Gemini 2. Here are some tests I ran myself. I want to try these other commands too, but just change it to Adobe instead of Edge. I'm going to copy this as well so it can see that there's no output. And then lastly, where it checks the registry, I'm going to paste that as well. But we need to change the display name to Adobe or Adobe and not Edge Adobe. So there you can see it does find a result. So I'll copy that as well and give it to Gemini here. Let me just space this out a little bit. This is Winget. This is WMI. And then the last one here is registry. Then I'm just going to give it the analysis prompt so it can come back to me before it makes any changes. So I'll save that, close it, and then go back to the terminal here and send that off. And I just want to rename this, and this is going to be issue 310. So we'll rename this terminal to 310. We'll just call this Adobe PDF not installed. So we'll allow all the commands that it wants to run. Now coming back to the window size issue here, Gemini went ahead and made changes to the files already, which I didn't want. I asked it to analyze it and then present me with the findings and recommendations, not to make edits to the files. So I might need to change my prompt and tell it more explicitly to give it to me in chat first. So the window size manager calculates the dynamic size of the screen and then centers it. It has no persistence. So it's got proposed changes, attempt to load saved Windows settings from the user preferences service. And if no settings are found, then execute the dynamic size and center logic. Autosave, subscribe to the window closing event inside the constructor to automatically save the current state. So then it made these code changes to the window size manager. And now it wants to do a build of the application. So I'm just going to cancel that and do the build myself, which is what I prefer doing. And you can see we've got some build errors down here. So what I thought was going to be a pretty straightforward enhancement turned out not to be so straightforward. So I'm just going to copy and paste all those errors and give it back to Gemini so it can fix it. Meanwhile, let's go over to the issue where Adobe PDF is not being recognized as installed. So the issue lies in the parse winget table output method, which we added in one of the previous devlogs. The current parsing logic explicitly filters out any winget package ID that doesn't contain a dot. So to be honest, I don't even know why it's doing that, but I guess this is how you learn. So the thing is, the Adobe Acrobat ID is from the Microsoft Store, so it doesn't contain a dot. So when our parser that we have extracts that ID, it just discards it because it doesn't contain a dot. So if we open the external apps definitions, like the document viewers, the winget package IDs usually have a dot inside of them there because it separates it by the publisher and then the actual app name. So if we have a look at the Adobe Acrobat definition, you can see the winget package ID is the Microsoft Store source ID. So if I were to do a search, winget search Adobe, let's just see what apps there are actually available. We got Adobe Acrobat DC, which is on the Microsoft Store, which is what we have defined inside of our document viewers definition there. But on the winget source, we have Adobe Acrobat Reader 32-bit and 64-bit. We don't actually have Adobe Acrobat Reader DC. The DC one is only available on the Microsoft Store. So just changing this to, let's say, for example, the Adobe Acrobat Reader 64-bit that's available on winget will fix the installation status issue. But that also means it's not installing Adobe Acrobat Reader DC, if I'm correct. And it doesn't address the larger issue with how we are parsing the winget output, because it has to be able to detect apps that have the Microsoft Store package as well. In the future, in the definitions here, I might have to actually change this so that I have a winget package ID property and maybe a winget MS Store ID, so that there's a clear differentiation between the two. But I'm not going to be doing that right now. For now, I want to fix the parsing issue. So I'm going to close this on the right side here. And I want to check what fix does it have. So just simply remove the package ID contains. While a pure clean architecture approach might involve switching winget interactions to use structured JSON output, which is more robust, it introduces complexity regarding winget version compatibility because older versions of the CLI don't reliably support output JSON for list. The existing table parser is functional and only fails here due to an overly aggressive validation rule. So I'm quite confused by this because I thought in the previous devlog where we were looking at this issue, we had it use the JSON output. But nonetheless, I'm going to go with the proposed change here. I'm just going to make the change myself. So on line 503 here, it suggests to remove the part where it filters out anything that has a dot. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to build the application again, and I'm going to try and test it in the virtual machine again, see if it works. Okay, so I've got the dev build launched here. Let's look at the document viewers, and now I can see that Adobe Acrobat Reader is showing as installed, which is correct. and none of the other items here are showing as installed except the Visual C++, which is correct because there are no other external software items installed inside of this virtual machine. So it looks like that is fixed now, so that apps with both the Wingate package ID and Microsoft Store IDs are properly being detected as installed now. So with regards to that, I'm going to commit those changes. So I'll do git status, then git add, and I'll just add the app status discovery file. Then I'll do git commit, and this is going to be fix improve app installation checks to include MS Store IDs. And then we'll just do in another message, fixes issue 310. Commit that, and then push those changes to the dev branch. So I'm going to close this window here. And now we still have the issue with the window size. So I'm going to build that. So let's maximize it and close it. Then build it again and see if it launches in the maximized state, which it doesn't. Let me see if I drag it smaller to the side. If I close it now and launch it, does it make any difference? No, it just launches to the default size in the center of the screen. So this isn't working. And if I inspect the user preferences file, I can see that it is not saving the preferences to the file either. Looking at the latest log file, there's also nothing in the logs that show me that it's trying to save those preferences. So I'm going to copy that, come over to Gemini again, paste that, and then tell it that it's not saving the preferences at all. Can you discuss what is going on before making any other changes? Make sure you analyze properly and think it through. Save that and send it. Okay, so it's come back saying that this is happening because of a race condition between the main Windows closing logic and the Windows size manager's save logic. So the problem is there's a race condition when closing the window, there's a premature shutdown, and then there's a lost save. Now, the thing is, I've got this file that is the application close service, which is supposed to handle these types of things. And it doesn't seem to even know about the file. What you're describing here, can't the application close service help with this? Don't edit any files, discuss it with me. So I wanted to read that file and then come back with me because I want to understand what's going on here. You're absolutely correct. Since the main window intercepts the close event and delegates everything to the service becomes the shutdown sequence. The issue right now is that Windows Size Manager is hanging off the side, trying to listen to an event that gets cancelled. Can it help? Yes, we can integrate the save window state action directly into the shutdown flow managed by application close service. That sounds like a better idea in my opinion. So when the user clicks X on the main window cancels the close and calls the application close service. The application close service should trigger a prepare for shutdown action. The Windows Size Manager performs the save, and then the application close service continues its work, checking the operations, showing the donation dialog, and then finally calls shutdown. So it's got an event-based and then an explicit call, but the recommendation is option A. So we can add a simple hook to the application close service, so any part of the app can register the cleanup tasks that must finish before the app dies. This guarantees the save happens as part of the shutdown flow, preventing the race condition while keeping the close service generic. So I'll tell it to go ahead with option A so I can test it. If this doesn't work, then I'm going to try option B as well. I just want to give it the prompt to write the code the way that I want it to be written, and then send that off so we can test it. In the meantime, if we go back to the issues, I'm going to close the Edge issue tab here. For the Adobe Acrobat Reader issue, I just want to change the label so that it says done, but it's awaiting the new release. And then just reply to the issue here saying that this has been fixed in the dev branch, and then give the commit and that it will be implemented in the next release. So I'm just going to comment that and close this tab. Now, we've still got two things that I want to have a look at. The first thing is a bug where Microsoft 365 Copilot is installed, but it's not available to uninstall. Now, what's happened here is Microsoft has released yet another different Copilot app, which is now called Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is different than the normal Copilot that's pre-installed on Windows. So what this user is reporting is, you can see from the screenshot here, if I open this up, Copilot is not installed in this list of Windows apps and features in Winhance, but they have an app called Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is a different app. So we have to find the AppX package of this app and then add it to Winhance. So there's going to be a Copilot entry as well as a Microsoft 365 Copilot entry here in the Windows Apps and Features section, because they're two different apps. And at this point, I really don't know how many more different apps Microsoft want to release with regards to Copilot, because these aren't the only two. There are a lot of them. So as you can see, when I do the search on the Microsoft Store here, we've got Microsoft Copilot, which is installed. If I open the Start menu, you can see that's the Copilot app that Winhance also currently knows about. But then we've got this new app, which is Microsoft 365 Copilot. So I'm going to install that because I want to get the AppX package ID so that I can add that to Winhance and that we can remove the app with Winhance as well. So now that it's installed, I'm going to close the store here. And just to show you, in the Start menu here, there's Copilot. And if I scroll down, there is Microsoft 365 Copilot. So these are two different apps on the PC. So to get the package ID, I'm going to open the terminal, which opens Windows PowerShell, and I'm going to run get appx package, but I'm going to select string which contains Copilot. So we've got Microsoft Copilot. Let me just do another search and add 365. So there are no results for that. If I do winget list and then select string Copilot. Okay, so the name is Microsoft 365 Copilot, but the actual package name is Microsoft Office Hub. So this package, it seems familiar. I just want to do a search in the Winhance code base. So I've already got that package defined here, but it's called Office Hub. So they've rebranded the Office Hub to Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now, if we go back to this user screenshot here, do we have Office Hub? We do. And I can also see that it's not reinstallable because this was something that was deprecated. So the only thing we might have to do is change the name to Microsoft 365 Copilot, but that might interfere with older versions of Windows, which actually have the Office Hub installed, like Windows 10, for example, because that's why the package exists, is so that users can remove it, but it can't be reinstalled. I think the only thing that I'm going to change here is the name and the description. I don't need to change the ID in Winhance, that can stay the same. But I wonder if I change this to MS365 Copilot and then just put the Office Hub in brackets. I can also change the description to Microsoft 365 Copilot and then formerly Office Hub, or rather formerly known as Office Hub. So if I change it to that, we're going to test it now when I build the application again. I want to see if this name isn't maybe too long, but I just want to see what Gemini has done here. So it's implemented option A that I asked it to do. So I'm going to build the application and test the Windows app definition that I just changed. And then also the window size, if it's actually saving the window size now, or if that still doesn't work. So I can see that the MS365 Copilot, formerly known as Office Hub, it does display. So there is enough space for it to display, even if I'm dragging the window smaller. But I guess I'll also have to change the fact that it's not reinstallable anymore, because it is now reinstallable because it's a new app. So Microsoft just used a previous AppX package ID, which was the Office Hub, and now released a new app on top of it. So I'll have to change it so that the reinstallation icon also changes. So I guess with the thing that Windows 10 is nearing end of support and the Office Hub was basically for Windows 10, I don't know, probably in earlier versions of Windows 11 as well, people won't be able to reinstall the Office Hub, but I mean, it has been rebranded. It's a new app now. The old Office Hub doesn't exist anymore. So can be reinstalled will be turned to true so that the icon changes inside of Winhance, and now it can be reinstalled. So just to verify that, yes, the icon has changed and it is reinstallable now. Now for the window size manager, I'm going to maximize Winhance, then close it, see if I relaunch it. Does it work? Did it actually save the window settings like Gemini said it would, or do we still have an issue? Okay, so it did actually maximize it, so it looks like it saved the preferences. If I look at the actual preferences file, I can see it did save the window state to the JSON file with proper JSON formatting. So that is working. But now let's test it. If I drag it smaller and I maybe keep it to the right side of the screen here, if I close it now, will it remember that position? So I just relaunched it and it is indeed remembering the window size and position with the changes that were made by Gemini here. So using the application close service, which honestly I thought the AI would pick up on in the initial analysis of the issue, is now working. And that just goes to show you, even when you're using AI to write the code and to develop these applications, you still need to be aware of what's happening in the code base and how your app actually works. Because if I didn't tell it about the application close service, it would still just be trying to use the window size manager, which it even didn't detect in the first place. I had to tell it about the window size manager and the application close service. So the point is, you need to be aware of the files that exist in your code base and what they're used for, so that you can direct the AI model in the correct direction so that you can actually implement what you want to get implemented. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I am going to be moving away from WPF and using Avalonia UI, which is much more updated than WPF. So we might have to redo some of these things, but that's going to be a major refactor, which I'll create probably multiple videos on. I don't think that'll fit into one video, but that's something for another day. For now, I'm going to commit these changes. So we were working on two different issues, which was the Windows app definitions and the Windows size issue. So let me just get the correct files here. So I'm going to add the Windows app definitions first, because that's only one file. And then I can just add all of the others with one single command. So I'm going to add the Windows app definition file, then type a commit message for that. And for this message, I'm going to say rename Office Hub to Microsoft 365 Copilot, just like Microsoft did. I think that's pretty funny. And then I'm just going to say that this closes issue, and then the issue is 298. Actually, before I do this, I forgot something. I'm just going to copy this commit message and save it in a notepad, because I just forgot that users won't be able to install this without a Winget package ID from the Microsoft Store. So I'm just going to copy the one from below it and get the actual package ID. So I'm just going to do a Winget search for Copilot so that I can get the correct ID from the Microsoft Store for Microsoft 365 Copilot, which was just released. Okay, so Microsoft 365 Copilot has that ID on the Microsoft Store. So I'm just going to paste it there, then save that. And just for interest's sake, the normal Microsoft Copilot, if we do a search for that ID, you can see that we do have it under the normal Copilot app. So before I commit those changes, I just want to do another build on the application and then test if I can actually download the Microsoft 365 Copilot app using Winhance, just so that I am sure that it is working, and then also test the removal of it after that. So we can see that it remembered the Windows size that I had before and the position. So we need to find MS365 Copilot and install that. And you can see if I hover over the item, the tooltip is displayed that says it's Microsoft 365 Copilot, formerly known as Office Hub. So it is installing it. So I managed to install it on my main machine here via Winhance, but I'm just going to select it and then remove it as well to see if it can actually remove it. And it looks like it was able to remove it. So I will commit those changes, and we've already added that file, the Windows app definitions file, and it has the latest changes. But I'll just add it again, get my commit message that I got earlier, commit that, and then push it up to the dev branch and clear the console. Now we can also commit all of the other changes for the Windows size issue. So we've got git add dot, which adds all of those files. Then we write the commit, and this is going to be a feature. Implement Winhance window size and position persistence. And then in another message, we'll just say closes issue 312. Commit that and then push that to the dev branch. So I'm just going to close these windows that I have open, then go to these pages on GitHub and just say that this was implemented in, and then give the commit. I tested it myself and it works, but if it doesn't for you, feel free to reopen the issue. So I'm just going to comment that, close this tab, and then for the Microsoft 365 issue that we had, I'm also going to say this was fixed in that commit. Microsoft used the old Office Hub name and AppX package ID, but rebranded it to Microsoft 365 Copilot, and I did the same in Winhance. So I'll just comment that, close this tab. Now for this last issue that I wanted to work on, which is another bug that's reported where Notepad and Paint is not showing correctly as installed in Windows 10 IoT Enterprise LTC 2021. Now this is not exactly the same as the other wrong installation indicators we've been working with, because this is related to legacy capabilities. And I've got another tab open here about a general discussion where Winhance reports 2 quick assists, which is Quick Assist inside of the Windows apps and then Quick Assist inside of the Windows capabilities, and that it's a little bit confusing. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because it's related to Notepad and Paint. Okay, so here I've got Winhance launched on Windows 10 IoT LTC 2021. And you can see the only thing that's being reported as installed is Microsoft Edge inside of the Windows apps, because that's literally all there is here. And then some of the Windows capabilities. Now, I can see that I've got Quick Assist under the Windows apps and then under the Windows capabilities. And this is just Microsoft's naming scheme for apps that are basically the same thing, but the Windows apps, the AppX packages, are new versions compared to the Windows capabilities. So for Paint, for example, I did this correctly, where we have Paint inside of the Windows apps, and then we have Paint 3D, which is another application. And then in Windows capabilities, I've got Paint, which is the legacy version. What's missing is Notepad from the legacy Windows capabilities, and then the snipping tool from the Windows legacy capabilities. Because we do have those in the Windows apps section up here, but you can see they aren't installed. So for example, snipping tool is not installed. Although, if I open the Start menu and I go to Windows Accessories, Snipping Tool is installed, but this is the legacy version. This is the previous version of the application. The same thing goes for Notepad. You can see there's Notepad, but this is the legacy version. It's the old version. Now you'll see Paint shows as not installed inside of the Windows apps, and that's correct, but it does show as installed as the legacy version, which is also correct, because if I go to the accessories, you'll see Paint, the legacy version, the old version, is installed. Now, the thing is that these apps are still available on the older versions of Windows, like Windows 10, and on some of the Windows 11 versions, but in the latest versions, they've been removed and they can't be installed on those versions of Windows. That's why the Paint in the legacy capabilities, and most of these legacy capabilities, can't be reinstalled on the newer operating systems like Windows 11. And that's why I just marked them as not reinstallable. Because, for example, if you're on Windows 10 IoT LTC, like I'm here, and it is installed, but you see that it can't be reinstalled, then you might want to think twice about actually removing it from the computer. So there are 3 things that I see that need to happen. The first one is the naming of the Quick Assist. I should just add legacy to this Quick Assist inside of the Windows capabilities as well, just like I did with Paint. And then I need to add the snipping tool and Notepad, the legacy versions, so that they also show up inside of the Windows capabilities here. So inside of the Winhance files here, I'll have to open the capability definitions file, and let's search for Quick Assist. So there we've got Quick Assist, and I'm just going to change the name to legacy so that we know that it's the legacy version. Honestly, because it appears under the Windows capabilities section, I thought that most people would know that there's a difference between these 2 apps, but I guess making it explicit, it shows that there are 2 versions of the application. So now what we'll need to add to this capability definition file here is the Notepad and snipping tool. But I first have to get those capability names, like I have for all of these other items, before I can add them. So I'm going to open PowerShell as admin, and then I've got a command here to get the Windows capabilities where the object name is like Notepad. So there I can see the full name is Microsoft.windows.notepad, and then it has those characters there, and it is installed at the moment. So to Winhance, I just add the first part, and it automatically gets the other things as part of the code when it searches for those objects. But let's also do snip and tool. So it doesn't seem to be getting the snipping tool, but maybe it has another package name. I'll find out now. So I'm just going to copy that for now into my notepad here. So let me just try this command, and it's not finding the snipping tool. So I can see the snipping tool is installed, but maybe it's not a legacy capability. So the snipping tool isn't actually a legacy capability or an optional feature. It's an inbox app, and it lives in this file path. So if I go to system32 and then look for the snipping tool exe, there's the snipping tool exe. So we might have to add different handling for this since it's not a capability. So the snipping tool is not a legacy capability or a optional feature. So we'll definitely have to add different handling for it. So with this info, I need some assistance from the AI. So I'm going to launch Gemini and just move it to the top here so I can rename it. This will be issue 278. So we'll do 278 legacy apps. And I'm just going to explain to it what the issue is here. In this application, read the content of this page, and I'm just going to pass it the URL of that issue. And what I want to say here is that first we need to add the legacy snipping tool is not a capability or a optional feature in Windows, and it's also not a AppX package. Currently, this app can only uninstall those apps, and I don't know how to go about adding the legacy snipping tool with install and uninstall support. But having the snipping tool in the Windows apps is confusing without having it in the legacy capabilities section too. To check whether it is installed, we could use this command, and I'll give it the command. But can it be uninstalled? Can it be reinstalled? I need your thought and input on this. Then I'm just going to paste the prompt so it can think it through and get back to me. And then I'll send that off. And I see I messed up the URL there, but it should be able to figure it out, hopefully. In the meantime, in the capability definitions, we can just add a new definition here. I'm going to add it below WordPad. So I'll copy that and paste it. So this capability is going to be Notepad. It's going to be called Notepad, and then in brackets legacy, which is just the simple text editor. It can stay as productivity, and then we'll just get that capability name, which was microsoft.windows.notepad, and then I can just save that. And I don't actually know if it can be reinstalled. We'll have to test it, because sometimes these things can be reinstalled via Windows Update. So I guess let's test that, whether it can be reinstalled. So first I want to remove this Windows capability, the old legacy Notepad. If I go to accessories, it does not appear here anymore. It's only WordPad. And then I want to add it again to see if it can be reinstalled. So the thing is, I'm doing this on Windows 10 IoT LTSC. So here it will most likely work. And on Windows 10 in general, it most likely might work. But I don't think it's going to work on Windows 11. And if that's the case, I'm just going to mark it as can't be reinstalled. And then in the future, when I fine-tune the whole reinstallation thing on Windows 10 and Windows 11, I can have Winhance detect the Windows version like it's already doing, but then display the correct icon based on that Windows version. So it looks like it succeeded, but I can't find it in the Windows accessories. If I do a search for it, it doesn't seem to be there. And if I run and then open notepad.exe, it does open it. So I guess I just want to remove it again, do the run command again. Okay, so now it's not there. It doesn't exist. I'm going to add it again. In the meantime, while it's doing that, let's go back to the AI chat here. Okay, so it's just added it again. If I run Notepad, it does open it, but I still don't see it in the list of apps here. But something else I do recognize here is the calculator. I don't think the calculator is inside of our list of apps either. The calculator also isn't here. So let me do that get Windows capability command again with calc. And it looks like that is also not a capability. And it's also not a Windows optional feature. So the calculator also isn't a legacy capability or optional feature. It's just a system application. So that means it's basically the same as the snipping tool. So if we go back to our chat here, we have to allow it to read the web page and then provide us with some fixes. Okay, so we've got a response here. It says that the recommendation is to extend the item definition that we have to support custom scripts for detection and installation. This mimics the existing removal script pattern that we already have and allows you to define any app that requires custom logic, like checking for a file path. So we've got the item definition model here. So we can have new properties for detection script and installation script. And then we can update the app status discovery service so it can use detection script. Then for app operations service, modify the install logic to handle installation script. Then we can define the snipping tool and it'll have a detection script, a removal script, and an installation script. But for the installation script, it's going to try to restore it from WinSXS, which honestly I don't think is going to work. Let's go to this file path inside of Windows 10 here. Let's do a search. So it does have it here. So this could work, but I want to test it before I actually implement it. And the thing is, we'll have to do the same thing for the calculator as well. I'm going to test these scripts quickly. So I'm going to create a new script. Let's call this remove.ps1. Get the file, open it with Notepad, and then just paste code in there. Just remove these line numbers that I copied as well. So I'm just going to run this file. So it successfully deleted it or removed it. Yes, the snipping tool is no longer here, but does it still show up inside of the start menu? It does, but I can't use it. So that's not ideal, but nonetheless, let me just open this file again. And now I just want to test the installation script. So I know it still says remove.ps1, but that's just so I can run it again and check if it actually installs the snipping tool again. Okay, so it was able to successfully reinstall it from the WinSXS component store. So the approach that it has here will work. But again, this is only going to work on Windows 10 systems that actually have the snipping tool. I think I want to add it and give the ability to remove it, but I'm going to make it not reinstallable. So I'm going to respond with add the snipping tool and the calculator in the way you just described. And then I'll also just pass the prompt for how I wanted to edit the files. So I wanted to edit it that way. And then I want to follow up with another question. I want to see whether or not we can add some Windows version detection logic for the reinstallable support, because we're now marking this as can be reinstalled. So even when a user launches a new update of Winhance on Windows 11, it's going to show that it can be reinstalled, but that's untrue. It can be reinstalled on Windows 10, but it can't be reinstalled on Windows 11. So we'll have to enhance that as well, at least for these two. And then later on down the line, I can really fine tune all of the other apps as well. Gemini has just added a whole bunch of comments to this file, which is its thinking pattern. That's not right at all. Okay, so now it's just deleted it. This is concerning. Anyways, added these scripts here for the calculator and for snipping tool. And it says it introduced a potential bug, which is even more concerning. Okay, so it seems like it didn't introduce a bug and it's completed the task. So I'm just going to build and run the application just to test that the changes up until now worked. And then I'm going to tackle the issue of it being reinstallable on Windows 10, but not on Windows 11. So if I look at Winhance here, I don't expect to see those installed. So Notepad Legacy is installed. If I open the run box and I type Notepad, I can't actually run Notepad, but I do think it is installed. So if I run this command, it does actually show the Windows Notepad as an installed capability. So Winhance is correctly reporting that it's installed, but I can't use it on Windows 11. Now, the thing is, in the UI here, I don't actually see either the calculator or the legacy snipping tool here. So if we go to capability, it's added new item definitions here, but obviously something isn't working. So I'll tell it that I'm not seeing the two new apps you added in the UI. Okay, so it just updated the part where it checks for capabilities. So it doesn't just check the name, but also the app detection script that we just added. So it should show up in the UI now. So it's still not showing up in the UI. And to be quite honest, I don't really like this implementation here. So I'm going to scrap that. I want to do a git restore on all of these files here so that it's back to before I started this chat with Gemini. So that also means that the notepad isn't showing up. So I just want to add that as well. So I'm just going to copy the WordPad again, and I'm going to change this to Notepad. This is going to be called Notepad Legacy. And this is just a simple text editor. And it's called Microsoft.windows.notepad. Then I just want to check once again the Quick Assist. Quick Assist also has to have the label Legacy. So we have a differentiator. But I'm just going to build the application again. So now we can see that Notepad is listed here. And Quick Assist also has Legacy in brackets. So it shows that Notepad is installed as a legacy capability, and it actually is on Windows 11. I can show you here, I ran this command and it is showing as installed. But if you do something like run and then do Notepad E, it's not going to open it because of the new version of Notepad that's installed on Windows 11. So this version just overrides it, but you actually have to open this version of Notepad. It doesn't just redirect it to the new version. But nonetheless, it is now showing up. So we've got Notepad installed under the Windows apps, and then we've also got it under the Windows capabilities. Now, the other two, the snipping tool and the calculator, I'm going to think about those more. I'm not happy with the way that it was implemented, and I'm also not even sure if I want to be able to remove those components in Winhance. I might end up deciding that it can be done, but I want to spend more time thinking about that. I'm not happy with the way that it was implemented, and it also didn't even work. For now, I'm going to commit these changes, the Notepad change and the Quick Assist name change. I'm going to commit those, and I'm just going to say we added Notepad to the legacy capabilities and updated the Quick Assist legacy name, and then I'll just push that to the dev branch. Then later on, I'm just going to reply to the thread here because I'm not going to close this right now. For Quick Assist, I'm just going to mention that Quick Assist in the abilities section has been changed to Quick Assist Legacy, and then I'll just give the commit. Hopefully this makes it less confusing. Okay, so I had to restart my PC since the last task we did because I had to test something else as well. But I went ahead and did a few other things to finalize the update, which was unfortunately done off of this recording. But I've now packaged the new updates installer and I just tested it on this virtual machine. As you can see here, this is Winhance version 26.01.19, which is today's release. And the things that I've implemented are working. Like I said, I've just tested it and I'm ready to publish this release. So that's what I'm going to do now. Now I've already packaged the installer. I've got the installer here. So what I need to do next is just merge the dev branch into main and then push a new tag, and that'll then automatically draft a new release. So I'm on the merge page here and there are 21 commits in total for this update. So I'm going to create a pull request and always just call this dev to main. And this is for bug fixes and new features in version 26.01.19. And I'm just going to paste it at the bottom here as well. Then create that pull request. Now that the pull request is open, I'm just going to merge that to the main branch. So that's successfully merged. Now, if I go back to VS Code into the terminal here. So now if I do git tag and then create that tag with today's date. And then if I push that tag, it should create it on the remote repository, and then I should be seeing a draft release on this page soon with all of the information already included. There we go. So I've got the draft release here. Just going to edit it. So it's got the correct tag. I'm just going to copy these things from the previous release. So this will be release 15 with that version number there. We've got the changes and the commits. Now some of these things I can remove and then just copy the localization part of it and paste it here. And I think in some of the upcoming releases, I'm not going to be including that anymore because it is also on the README. So that's it for this release. Now I'm just going to upload the installer as well and then set it as the latest release. And then I'm going to publish this release, which is now Winhance release 15, version 26.01.19. So quite a few things I did in this update, and hopefully the bug fixes that we implemented will work for everyone, but I'm waiting on you guys to tell me if it worked, those of you using the application and testing it. And I really wanted this video to be shorter than it is, but at the end of the day, that's development and stuff doesn't go as fast as you think it would. The stuff that I set out for this video took longer than expected, but in any case, that is going to be the video. Thanks so much if you stayed until the end. And let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. I'm happy to hear any of your feedback. But with that being said, I'll see you soon.